Yeah, thank you for the nice introduction, and thank you for listening to my talk. So I'm gonna give a slightly different talk from the previous talk. So the title of my talk is AI-assisted text mining to facilitate reading for understanding. So my name, first name, so people here call me Jet. Some people call me G, and some people call me Jai, so I'm used to all of those. So that's fine, that's okay. So why are we doing this? We know that reading is a basic skill. And so we are interested in developing text mining tools to facilitate reading for understanding and assessing reading comprehension. So of course, reading has several different goals. Sometimes we read for fun. Sometimes we read for information. And most of the time, we read for understanding. For instance, we read a paper, we read a report. So we want to know what is going on. So that's the main part of learning. So that is also the main media, I would say, or main way for us to learn new knowledge. Actually, is actually has been the main methods. So we usually read in a linear order. So you are given an article. So we start reading the title, and then the abstract, and then the section. So following the natural order. So that has been what we have been doing. But then there are many people talking about how do you read better? How do you get the main points faster? So then, so we realized that perhaps hierarchical reading would be more effective. So what do I mean by hierarchical reading? So imagine that we have an oracle that can rank sentences according to their importance based on the article you are given or you are going to read, which then makes it possible for us to read layers of sentences in descending order of importance. Focus on the most important layers of sentences, read subsequent layers to strengthen understandings of earlier sentences. So in other words, we turn a linear reading into a layered reading. Okay, so it's a layer by layer. So now to demonstrate what I mean by this, so let me provide an example. So we are going to read a case study research paper published by Harvard Business School on Apple's design thinking and innovation. So this is a 14-page long PDF document. And business school students, they often have to read a pile of case studies in a short period of time. So let's see whether this tool can help them get the ideas quicker. So let me switch to a website. Okay, so this is the tool we built. Currently, we can handle English and Chinese. So I have already downloaded this PDF. So let me show you what that PDF looks like. So, this article was a case study on Apple's design thinking and innovation. It was published in May 1st, 2012. So that was several years ago. So the reason I chose this is because we do know something about Apple. So when we pick up the most important parts to see whether we agree on, we agree with it. Okay, so now let's go. So this is a research paper. Remember, I select this one percent as a default. So you can, to begin with, the default is 10%, but 14 page, if you look 10%, is still too long. For instance, if I put 10%, then it's a very long, and that still requires something, some time to read. So I just put 1%. So if you read that article carefully, then you will know that this essentially that's what these several sentences talking about the Apple's design, thinking, and innovation. Now, if you still look at this, maybe 5 or 7 sentences here, if you still want to see, okay, what's the most important one, I can actually do that. You say, okay, this is the one sentence. So then we can read this sentence. For companies like Apple, who put a premium on design resources and time invested into the initial product, is leveraged across derivative products. These can be developed and ramped up more quickly because they build on and make use of existing design elements in the platform. Okay, then, so this is specifically talks about Apple. And then, of course, it has, if you want to read the second sentence, then this you get one more sentence. You can read more, and so on. So normally our experience is that once you read about 10 sentences, you basically can get the main ideas out of it, out of this article. It's a 14-page articles. Okay, so that's what I mean by layer reading. So we can now, let's say we do 10%. 10% is quite a bit. Okay, so that probably gives you almost the main points you need. But if you want details, you can read more. So this would be the 20%, and the pink color is the 10% after the 10 extra percent of sentences added to the earliest 10% that are the most important ones. And on the right hand side, these are the keywords. Okay, so that's what I mean by hierarchical reading. But then the next question would be how accurate your ranking is, because we were thinking we have an oracle to do this, but then of course we have to have an algorithm to do this. So, okay, so last year in this same conference, I presented with a little more detail on this algorithm we use. At that time, we call it semantic sentence ranking or semantic sentence rank algorithm. So at that time, the algorithm was already pretty good. For instance, it outperforms individual human judges over the Sun Bank benchmark. So this benchmark is a collection of articles, and then there are 3 human judges. Each of them rank sentences on each article. Of course, their ranking may be different, so there is also a combined ranking of these 3 human judges. So the algorithm we presented last year already outperforms individual human judges over this benchmark, but it's not, well, although it compares favorably with the combined sentence ranking of all judges, but between the, as you can see here, between the range of 40 to 50, now this is the bottom line is what we did last year. There is some, for instance, the 40%, so this is 80.4, so 82 is the human, combined human ranking. So we were able to increase this ranking to 81.11, so which means that now we are really, really very close to combined rankings of human judges in terms of ranking sentences. So in that regard, the ranking algorithms we are using in this tool is accurate because it it beats individual judges, and also it's really, really close to combined rankings of all these three judges. Okay, so but then the next thing we really want to do, which is also I want to spend most of my time talking about today, is after I have this tool and I read through the documents, and how do I assess my understanding of the document? Okay, so we also need some kind of automatic tools to do this. And so the easiest or the natural way for doing so is to generate multiple choice questions on a given article. Okay, so we want to have a algorithm or the system with the input of an article, and then it generates a number of multiple choice questions. And we know that to generate multiple choice questions, it has two parts. So one is we need a question, and also we need an answer. So this is a question answer pair. And the second part is that we need a bunch of distractors. In particular, we would like to have 3 distractors for each QAP, question answer pair. So distractors are something that look like answers, but they are incorrect. So you do need to have certain understanding of the article in order to tell whether they are incorrect answers. Okay, so that's what we are trying to do. And of course, this studying of a QA has been really active, has been very active in recent years, particularly in the neural network model studies. There have been several approaches, but their approaches are in general is a question answer, which means that it builds a, so you have a question, then you provide an answer, but this answer may be coming from a very big database. Okay, so that's more or less what this QA has been. But right now, we just have a given article. So we want to generate QAP, so question answer pairs. And also, if you think of this neural network approach, this is sort of like learning to speak in a language environment without going to school, because these models are trained on a very large amount of training data. So those are similar to the language environment, like when we were young, we learned to speak from listening to our parents, our siblings, and people around us. We didn't really go to school. Okay, so then we can still learn. So this is sort of like what the neural networks are doing today. But of course, we also know that humans are good at summarizing and following language rules. So that's why when we were, let's say, at the age of 6, then we would need to go to school to learn. So in a more formal setting, so that we can learn grammar, we can learn how to speak and how to write properly, not just from a language environment. So this makes us think, how about we find a way to do something similar, to generate questions and answers by going to school, something like this. So our approach then is the following. So we come up with a new method we called meta sequence learning. So the idea then is this. So we are going to represent each sentence. So this sentence could consists, well, this sentence could mean a declarative sentence, DS, or an interrogative sentence, IS. So this represents a question. So in other words, when you want to assess reading comprehension, what you have is a bunch of facts or declarative statements, sentences, and then you're going to ask about these facts and these declarative sentences. So what we are going to, so this meta sequence is actually a sequence of tuples, and each tuple, you can think of it as a vector of several syntactic and semantic tags about that word. So for instance, we can use semantic role labeling, and we can use a part of speech tag. We can use name entity recognition. And as a matter of fact, these three are currently what we are using currently. But of course, we can also add others such as sentiment tag and some other tags. But in general, this is the idea that we can represent a declarative sentence and the corresponding interrogative sentence as a meta sequence. So there are no more words. It's just a sequence of syntactic and semantic tags. Okay, then we build a system called meta QAP to learn meta sequence pairs of declarative sentence and interrogative sentences. So in other words, we will have a database, a training data. So this training data has a declarative sentence, and then the corresponding interrogative sentences. Now the plural form there is because that for one declarative sentence, we could come up with different ways to ask questions. So that means that you will have multiple interrogative sentences. So we have these databases built, and then we will, this system learns a meta sequence on these given data, training data. So then we store them. Then once we have a new article, then we look at each of the declarative sentences, and we turn this declarative sentence into a meta sequence. And then we're going to search for a match from the meta sequence we have already learned. So that looks like the knowledge or the rules we learn by going to school. So when we have a new sentence comes in, I'm going to see, okay, which one that match with this new sequence, this new meta sequence. So once I found a good match, then I will look at the ways to ask questions. Then I can generate interrogative sentences for this declarative sentence. So then that's the idea. But then, of course, you may not always find a good match. When that happens, that means we don't have enough knowledge. So that means that we have to keep learning. So if that happens, then we will ask the user to tell us more about the possible interrogative sentences so that we can add new meta sequences into our knowledge base. So that is the idea, and this is the architecture. And so we have a training part or training portion, and we also have a application portion. So training, we have a training data. We turn each pairs of DS and IS into a meta sequence, and we store them. When we apply them, so we take in an article, we check all the declarative sentences, and then we generate meta sequence for those, and we try to find a match in order to know how to ask a question. Sometimes it doesn't have a good match, so we develop a way to identify, well, basically it's a longer substring. So we find longer substring to see of these meta sequences. If it's not a good match, we have two options. One option is, we go ahead, still ask a question. So that question may not be perfect, but we can still ask questions. The other way is then, okay, I'm gonna ask the user who, so this is an interactive system. So we can ask the user to enter some interrogative sentences so that the system can learn new meta sequences. Then since we know that all these sentences are finite, right? So there are finitely many so far. Of course, it's unbounded. We can get more new sentences, but so far they are all just finite, even though it's a huge number. It's a huge number, like all the books there are, that kind of things. but the patterns, they are not that big. So this database is not really very big, but it's just that you have to keep learning. So once you train the data and retrain and train, so once you have a new patterns, you train it. So eventually you will come up with a database with these meta sequences that can generate pretty good question answer pairs. So that is the goal. And we have already built the system. So I don't know what time do I have. Okay, so the next thing then we need to generate distractor. Okay, distractor means that I have an answer, I have a question, I have an answer. I need to generate our goal is to generate 3 distractors to go with the answer. So we present them to the reader, and they have to pick which one is correct. So that means that our distractors have to look very similar to the correct answer, but it cannot be correct. They are wrong answers, but just similar in terms of grammar, in terms of semantics, okay, in terms of the context, in other words. So then we call each answer a target. Okay, so each answer, so we call it a target words or target phrase or target sentences, because sometimes an answer could be a sentence itself. But in general, they have 3 different types. Okay, so one is they are talking about, they are involving numerical values. For instance, time ranges, some quantities, right? Like weights, that kind of thing. So the other type is like locations, people's names. So these would be the answers. And the last type is general. So they would just be some words. So the way we do so is for type 1 and type 2. So for type 1, we just need to come up with an algorithm to generate a different numeric values in the same format of the target. So that was not so hard. And for type 2, we would need to rely on domain knowledge base for names and for locations. For instance, for politicians, and we have to come up with similar names in politics at the same time or in the same region to generate distracting effect. And for locations, we also need to do something similar. So that can be taken care of by suitable domain knowledge base. So there are certain knowledge base, there are such things available for locations, but for names they are not. So we need to build some. But theoretically they are not hard. But for the last one, so it's a general words. How can we come up with distractors? So of course, the easiest way to think about it is, okay, how about we use word embedding to find semantically similar words. Okay, so that's what we did. Well, many people are also doing this too. However, when you come up with a similar words using word embeddings, sometimes you have to get rid of the ones that are very similar and the ones that are not so similar. So you maintain some of the words in the middle part. And remember, we need 3. So if you have more than 3, then we still need to pick. You can randomly pick them, or you can rank them. So since we are so fond of ranking, so we are going to rank these candidates so that we can pick 3 distractor candidates that are more suitable as distractors. So then this ranking is what we do. We use 3 different measures. So the WC is a candidate, WT is the target word. So this V of WC is a vector, is embedding, which is a vector. So we compute is a similarity, that's 1. The other one is we look at the word net, WUP score. And the third is that we look at how similar in terms of spelling. So we look at added distance. So by putting these 3 measures together, then we can give a ranking for how close this candidate to my target word. So for instance, if this candidate is an antonym of WT, we use this linear combination by putting more weights on the similarity. Otherwise, we will treat each of these measures equal. And finally, we use the information theoretic measure to measure this ranking. So use this ranking, then we can select distractors. Oh, by the way, one of the things we found that for word embedding is that a word embedding does not handle words with multiple meanings. Okay, so we spent some time we are still studying how can we come up with a better way to represent the meanings of a word if it has multiple meanings. So which meaning of that word we are really using. But nevertheless, that's the system we built. So of course, then we want to try to see what it looks like. Okay, so for the article we just mentioned, this is the case study, again, the case study published by Harvard Business School in 2012. So that's a 14-page article, a PDF file. So we were able to generate over 400 questions. So some of them are good, some of them may still need to be improved, but we can take a look at what it looks like. Oh, by the way, this computation did take some time, so I pre-computed it and I stored the results. So this is the first question. So this is a fill in blanks type of question. We have these distractors. This is on March 15, blah, blah, blah. So when this Apple's share price reach 6,000, so you ask some questions, then so we know this is world economies. Right, so let's, yeah. So what did the iPad tablet computer accelerate? The next, what did people use, and so on. So, so that's basically what we did for this, and we are still trying to make this tool better and help students to read articles. So with that, so that's my talk. So.